What's up guys, SKNOVA here with another video, making videos a little bit faster, which is the way it should be. This one's going to be a little bit of a fun, speculative video. I have here a list of some, we'll call them leaked patch notes. Now this could be totally fake, could be real. I saw some other leaked patch notes which were kind of true. They showed the screen from the Google Play Raid Store, I think, in terms of some of the exact wording of the update that just happened today. Patch 1.7 is downloadable. It is not fully in effect yet. Probably within the next day or two. Plarium has said in their forums that it will be coming live. So I want to give a kind of a behind the scenes view or an early sneak peek of some of the abilities. I'll drag this over here. Hopefully you guys can read this. Let's make it bigger. The main thing I want to highlight here, we'll go over some things briefly. There's a referral program, which could be interesting in terms of some of the rewards you get for introducing raid to friends. Always good to have in every game. Progress missions 3 and 4 are finally opening up. That could be extremely good, especially since there's a new Legendary Champion Arbiter. It'll be interesting to see what those progress missions entail. I will definitely be working on that. Masteries are being worked on, and the biggest change, I think this is going to be not quite game breaking, but making the game much more exciting for many players out there because of this ability right here, War Master. Now War Master currently gives you 200 attack, which is essentially useless to the final tier level, and no one would ever take that over something like Giant Slayer, or extremely very rarely. Maybe some weird like bomb case, but Giant Slayer was just so overpowered. It totally changed the meta. Every damage dealing character or support character had to have both multiple hits and Giant Slayer to be viable in clan boss, Brutal and Nightmare. It made the game a little bit less exciting because many of the really cool legendary heroes that you would get were not as useful. If they only had a single hit A1, you would not bring them along because they were not as good as an apothecary, a rare hero with 3 hits, for example. What War Master is going to do, it's going to revamp the entire game and put single hit characters on par with multi-hit characters, basically opening up the clan boss to every single hit character out there. And the exciting part about this is there's so many debuffs and buffs that can be on A1 abilities. I think this is going to make counterattack extremely valuable. So the Skull Crusher, Martyr, and Valkyries out there in the world will be very useful, but even characters that can apply counterattack to other heroes or to themselves, such as, let's say, Executioner, Talia, Jaizo, all these characters that are, would never be thought of necessarily for really good clan boss use. I guess Talia is not a good example because she's already a 3-hit with counterattack, but you get the point. The other ones on here, so Shieldbreaker, this was a mastery talent that was a little bit earlier on in the tree, super valuable for PvP, but now they're putting it down here onto, I don't know if it's, it's probably in the same position. It's just being changed now, so you don't do 25% damage to both the shield and the health, just to the shield part of it. So that's a pretty big nerf to Shieldbreaker, making shields that much more valuable in Arena. So it's not a detraction to have shields anymore, potentially. So I think that's a very good change. So War Master, Giant Slayer, and Hell Smasher are all bottom tier talents. Hell Smasher also got an interesting buff where it has extra defense ignore, which can be huge because, as I mentioned in some of my previous videos, the tankiness of defensive teams has gone up quite a bit. So for a PvP talent, there was a choice between this one and the 20% crit, and this probably, crit damage. This probably is a little bit better in the current meta in terms of damage because you're going to be doing, although it's only 50% chance, but that will make a big difference in the amount of damage that you can do to defensive heroes. This defensive tree Mastery Chain Shadow Heal is, I don't think this is enough to break Arena. It's a little nice bonus. Maybe it'll make the beating Rain Beast earlier on in the lower tiers a little bit better, because you also get a heal every turn that he's healing himself. So maybe that is a little nice bonus there, but definitely I don't think it's game breaking. So this is another part of the leak, and some of the characters, I think the list will be a little bit larger in terms of what's changing. We'll just go over some of the interesting one here. I actually have a Michelle. It'll be interesting to see how much this ability increases. For those of you who may not know, the Bloodsucker ability does damage, and it's kind of like a lifesteal for Michelle, where it's a built-in lifesteal to his ability. Very unique to him. Not a lot of characters have that. So that could make him very useful. Maybe he could be a good clan boss character, in that now you can ramp up the damage, and he kind of has a built-in vamp set without having to wear a vamp set. One other interesting one I think that might change Arena quite a bit is Sylar, who is a Void hero. Her abilities are all AoE, so they're changing one of her abilities that was basically kind of like a turn meter down, or a speed debuff that she could put on everybody. Also increases the turn meter by now up to 40%, and that is huge. I mean, potentially they're going to fix how resist and accuracy work, so that could change how you would gear her. Maybe you need more accuracy, but reducing turn meter by 40% is insane for Arena, because not only is she doing damage, but she's reducing everybody's turn meter. It's kind of like the opposite of a Seeker or a Gore-Grab, where they're buffing your team. She is debuffing everybody else, allowing the rest of your team to go sooner. And with multiple debuff heroes like Big Un, potentially you can get 2 turns in before your opponent even gets 1 turn in. And in Arena, that is absolutely insane. So I think that is a pretty good change. Some of the heroes that were essentially deemed to be fairly useless, such as Cardinal, have now been improved. She's basically a similar, but I guess slightly better than Gore-Grab in terms of this ability. But I think Gore-Grab will still be used overall because of his speed buff. I still think he still would be better in Arena, but this has an interesting use, and sort of niche, but much better than before. She might see some use, but definitely not necessarily game changing. And Rowan was buffed. Most of these are buffs, so they've made some of the characters' abilities that were not as popular a little bit more popular. Other than, I don't know if Taurus killing himself to do a bunch of damage, haven't really figured out how beneficial that will be, but it's in there. So I think this is all pretty cool. And I just want to talk about some of the potential changes. As my phone turns off here, let's turn that back on. Some of the interesting heroes, I think, that'll come out of this. So the interesting heroes meaning characters that were no longer or currently not used for clan boss that all of a sudden become very good. And I think for clan boss, things like defense down and weaken, although they're changing them in terms of how they proc with poisons and burns, will still be very valuable. There'll be a lot more damage from a lot of different sources, so buffs and debuffs will still be very valuable. The poisons and burns won't be as necessary, let's say, for all of your damage. There won't be such a high percentage of all your damage, but still very good. I just want to go over, because of that change, characters such as, who do we want to start with here? Let's start with the beginning. So I think one character that a lot of people have deemed as not that great, and even like lower tier, is suddenly going to become amazingly useful. So Vrask is already a very powerful healer, because every time he hits, he does 10% of his health as a heal to everybody else. Now, imagine doing the same thing, but now you're doing way more damage. That's basically what Lugan's A1 ability will be doing. So he's going to heal everybody else besides himself. So potentially, I guess you could put a vamp set on him, and then everyone would be healed by his ability, and you basically only have to use his A1 over and over and over again, and you have a huge healer. He's already super tanky, being an HP hero. He comes with a defense increase buff and an ally protection. So I mean, for clan boss, he could be the new top healer. To be decided. Obviously, lots of changes are coming. If you have him, dust him off, level him up. He is going to be pretty useful all of a sudden. So I think that's pretty good change. So that, you know, just the one change to War Master alone is already sort of reshaping how a bunch of heroes are going to behave and make certain heroes useful that were possibly not as useful before. So really cool. All legendaries are really good. Anybody with a let's say a decreased defense or decreased attack on the buff or weaken debuff, I don't know if it will dethrone Aethel from being your number one weaken healer or weaken debuff placer, because most people still on their A1 ability only have a low percent chance. There's a few characters. I'm just going through my list. I have a little spreadsheet here. Oh yeah, so Deathless from Night Revenant. She is a she. As I always get that confused. So here we go. Okay, her A1 is potentially a 100% chance with skill tomes to put decreased defense. If someone's dead. So I mean, maybe not as useful. But I mean, still interesting ability, still useful, still puts a 30% version. Let's scratch that one. So we're trying to find heroes with the best chance of putting on debuffs. Oh, I know a good one to talk about. So going back up here, LNRL. So I mean, we talked about burn and poison, slightly being reduced because they're not going to scale the same way potentially from defense down and weaken like they did before. But she places an HP burn on her A1 ability for 2 turns every single attack. Plus, then you can throw in some of her poison ability every so often. That's basically going to be a constant HP burn on the boss. The HP burn still does a ton of damage. I mean, it currently does over 100k with the debuff, so let's say it drops down to half even, so it's 60 or 70k. 60 or 70k bonus damage every single turn, almost guaranteed, on top of her attacks, which can also, you know, proc abilities, which can be extremely powerful. So, I mean, you get War Master, she's already doing a ton of damage. She's throwing the HP burn. She now moves from, you know, don't use her on the clan boss post Giant Slayer to you want her on your team, because HP burn is fantastic. So I mean, that's one hero that's very interesting. Another one who I wait to see how good he will be is Judge here. So we'll point out Judge's ability. He's only a rare character. This is sort of very unique. I don't think I've seen this on any other characters. Is that his damage increases for debuffs on the target. So if you have a lot of debuffs with this new A1 change, potentially going to be having characters that put more poisons on, HP burns, you're going to have defense down, decreased attack, all those kind of things on the boss. It's not too difficult or hard, let's say, to assume that you're going to get 10 debuffs, or maybe full all 11 debuffs, but it goes up to 100% damage. So he's now doing double damage. He's already a pretty high attack, very high attack for a rare character, potentially doing tons of damage. Plus you have, you know, with the new mastery, could be an interesting character to use. He goes from being probably not that useful to top tier. Another one that's sort of been at the bottom barrel a little bit that now will come out of hiding is Durang. So again, he only has a single hit, which made him not too great before, but a built-in 30% ignore defense is huge. That's a big extra 30% damage buff to him. You can see his attack is already pretty high in the 1600s, so it could all of a sudden become extremely viable. So Judge and Durang, 2 characters come out of hiding, never used in the clan boss before by anyone most likely, are now going to potentially be in the top tier. To be seen, of course, but I think super interesting and makes the game exciting, as everyone is going to be scrambling to level up all new heroes. Almost like a whole new game again. So we'll throw in Bonekeeper here. Now, it's not quite a 100% chance, but it's going to be a 75% chance to put the 60% decrease down. I think that might be one of the top A1 abilities. I was thinking Deathless was 100%. Did not fully read the ability that you actually have to have allies dead, which is not so great. So Bonekeeper is my new number one until I find a better one. If you know of something better, let me know. But yeah, Bonekeeper is going to be pretty awesome. All of her attacks are single, but all of them potentially could be used on the clan boss, especially with the new mastery. And, you know, why not? So the extra hit attacks are going to be very good, because I think the extra hit, if it works the same way as a lot of the other procs in this game, also has a chance to proc. So you're going to stack crit on her, obviously, which is really good, and crit damage, speed. You basically want everything. You want her fully statted. So if you have her, maybe consider start to leveling her up, because I think she's going to be maybe the new, we'll call her the new Tyrell of the new meta, because of the mastery change, and that everyone's going to want her on her team. You're going to do lots of damage, provide a lot of great buffs, and keep the defense down debuff on the boss at all times, increasing your other damage output greatly. Warlord, I think, is now possibly super top tier, because as everyone is going to have more debuffs on the boss, and Warlord has the ability of increasing debuffs, basically this helps ensure that stuff never falls off. It might get to the point, actually, if you have a lot of poisons from a bunch of different characters with all the buffs, that you do reach the debuff limit. He's already amazing. I think a little bit underrated because he doesn't have a multi-hit A1, but that buff increase can be huge, keeping HP burn on every time. Fantastic. You know, I guess if it gets to the point where you don't really need to increase the debuffs because you have a team that applies them every other turn, not too big of an issue, but with all the debuffs coming out, interesting to see how he is going to play into the new meta. I still think Tyrell is going to be good. The 50% attack down is obviously fantastic. It helps keep you alive. One character that didn't get much love in the clan boss up until now is War Mother. She also has a chance to place the decreased attack. She has 2 hits, so it's kind of like a 60% chance. Not too shabby. I think that's a little bit higher than Tyrell's, and you know, potentially usable. I don't know how much damage the bomb debuff will be doing and what it scales off of, like defense down and weaken, but that's not really the sole purpose of her. And you know, something to consider, something to think about. I'm just going through my list still and figuring out what other buffs are super important to have. So even though weaken and defense down aren't quite as beneficial as they were because of the poison change, I'm still pretty sure you want them. All the other decrease accuracy, turn meter decrease, speed decrease are not going to be very useful on the clan boss still, but you know, increasing how much damage you do to them still can be very good. So I'm just kind of going through. This is all kind of off the cuff because I think it's going to be very interesting change to how the game works. I'm wondering if someone like Longbeard here will also be very useful. He's already fantastic with all of the multi-hit characters he had before, but now that you can also bring in potential single-hit characters with really strong poisons or debuffs and stuff that you want, and you can bring in one-hit enemies or one-hit heroes onto your team instead of just having multi-hits, it could make him more valuable too. So counterattack is super good. Longbeard maybe super good too. And he also comes with his weaken debuff too, which is on 2-turn cooldown. That's a 4-turn for the big hit. Yeah, so interesting if you run counterattack, or if you don't run counterattack and you have him. I still think Steel Skull is going to be great for clan boss because he has a multi-hit A1, so it's nerfed a little bit, so it's not going to be quite as high damage as before, but he also comes with the increased defense buff, which is very important for survivability in the clan boss. I don't know. It's kind of wide open in terms of what builds work. There's no perfect spec right now. I mean, clan bosses kind of come down to maybe, I'd say, 10 heroes that are used on most teams, give or take. Might be a few legendaries that you can swap in and out, but basically you have some buffers for increasing your defense, or a buffer. If you can increase your defense, you need to apply weaken to the boss, decrease defense to the boss, and decrease attack. So you have 1 buff, 3 debuffs, and then your goal is basically just to attack him as many times as you can with Giant Slayer proccing. So you need, 1 good damage dealer and a counterattacker, or 1 speed buffer, and one or two 3-hit characters. So kind of limited in the choices currently. With this change, there's unlimited heroes, basically. There's tons of rares, epics, and lots of more legendaries are now going to be viable in clan boss. So I think this is super exciting. I can't wait for it. I'll be keep making videos in terms of what is good. I'm also excited because maybe for the first time some of the characters that I haven't really used, such as Mashald, are going to become viable and very useful. This is probably going to have some large changes in Arena. I'm thinking there's going to be more character changes than just what was in that list, but potentially someone like Sylar, who I'm lucky enough to also have, is going to now become useful. So you can see that this is a decreased speed debuff and a 15% reduction, which is already pretty good. And there's nothing wrong with that, but 15% is a little bit too low, not necessarily game changing, but buffing it up to 40% now, she's definitely a viable alternative. I don't know if you would be able to run a speed increase and her with a speed decrease, but because she has a fairly strong AoE attack, not maybe as strong as some of the legendaries out there, but she could still be useful. So I think that's one change that might change the Arena meta a little bit. I still think it's going to be very bursty. The Mastery change to increase the ignore defense will be a little bit of a benefit too, and possibly very beneficial for Arena. So the meta will change slowly. I don't think that the changes are going to change Arena as much as they're going to change the clan boss. So if you guys have any other comments or ideas of possible heroes that have been improved, Astrolith is, funny enough, slightly better now. I don't know if she'll ever be top tier, but basically every hit she's bumping up turn meter. I don't know that many characters that increase turn meter of other people when they do damage, so there's a bunch of characters that increase their own turn meter, such as Vrask or Juliana. When they're attacking, then their turn meter keeps getting bumped up, so that's good for that one character. But to have a support kind of character that also does damage, so Astrolith does okay damage, I'd imagine, that also starts buffing other characters, could be good. It's just too bad that unless bombs are super amazing, her third ability doesn't work on the clan boss, so she's really left with these 2 attacks, which now becomes slightly better with the Mastery change. So maybe she would see some use. Luria also had an interesting, she has a pretty high chance to put a debuff on the boss. I don't think decreased speed applies, so there's a chance that she's going to use this ability, not use decreased defense, so she'll either put a heal reduction, which can go on the boss, or a decreased speed reduction attempt, which doesn't work, so probably just get blocked or resisted. So even though it can be a 75% chance she's putting debuff on the boss, it's not necessarily the one that you want. So that is her downside, and the rest of it doesn't really work on the clan boss. Well, I guess this one could remove if the boss is below 50%, has the affinity that gives them the extra attack damage. Definitely good to remove that. So it's good to have a debuff remover. Could be used for that. But you know, now that there's so many more character choices for clan boss, there's so many more characters that can do the same thing. I mean, I think I could go through almost all the characters now that they're slightly more viable on clan boss. It opens up how many endgame characters are now available, from, you know, the 10 to 20 that are currently good to, you know, 100 plus. Lots of them are good. Fushan is also already really good in sort of a speed team because he has the highest speed aura, and his first hit ability has a chance of proccing extra hits, and those extra hits also now have a chance of doing all the bonus damage. So it can be huge. They can only proc Giant Slayer, which is not as big per hit, but I think each extra hit counts as an individual hit. Well, so does the multi-hit, but it'll be interesting to find out if the Mastery is also affected for Fushan. That could make him bump him up in the tier list in terms of damage dealers for the clan boss. So he will hit extra hard and provide the speed aura, both of which will be extremely valuable and potentially compete with, you know, the counter-attacking teams that'll be out there now, because there could be so many more options there too. So really cool. I just want to make this video because I'm kind of geeking out and I'm very excited about the change. Like I said before, this is all speculative. No idea how this War Master Mastery is going to pan out. No idea if this list is actually true or not. But if it is true, even if it's partially true, it could be very interesting in the next few days. The meta will change. Get to level more heroes. Get to use some heroes that you probably thought weren't that good. Hopefully you haven't turned them to food. And you can try out some new heroes in the clan boss, and it'll be very exciting. So I hope you guys like this video. Like and subscribe, and tune in for the next one.